fiscal measures. So when we're coming to the resource envelope, I think we have seen a reduction with the two budgets. In 2022, the budget was actually at 173 billion, which has reduced to 167 billion. And when you look at the sources which government is trying to generate the revenue to facilitate this budget, we would actually see that there's been an increase with aspirations towards domestic revenue that the government would wish to achieve within 2023. So domestic revenue is actually going to be increased from 57% of the budget to 66.7% of the 2023 budget. So the majority of the budget is actually going to be financed through corporate income tax. We also have payee and other non-tax measures such as licenses, tourism levy, as well as other fines that government accrues. Then we look at domestic financing, which is actually financing through domestic borrowing. We've seen a reduction from 14% in the 2022 budget to 9.3%. Foreign financing as well as grants has also reduced from 29% to 24%. So this is actually commendable, given the fact that some of the IMF conditions have actually looked at us, shown that we need to enhance our mobilization locally as opposed to relying on foreign financing and grants, and also looking at the international shocks that we've been experiencing. I think it's a very good move that government actually intends to mobilize most of its resources to fund this through domestic revenues. When it comes to expenditure by function, I think we've seen a reduction in the general public service. That's from 86.4 billion to 66.2 billion, and this is mainly due to the fact that we have the IMF extended credit facility, which has also helped to restructure our debt. So we have actually reduced the budget that's going towards debt servicing from about 40% to 18%, which has given more government space for social sector spending, which can be seen from the education budget, which has increased from 18.1 billion to 23.2 billion. Then we also see an increase in social protection mechanisms from 6.3 billion to 8.1 billion. Now, when we come to the key sector budget allocations against international protocols, I must mention that Zambia is actually signatory to various international protocols, such as the Maputo Declaration, which states that member countries should allocate at least 10% of the total budget towards agriculture. And we've actually seen that there's been an improvement with regards to agriculture financing from the 2022 to 2023 budget. That is from 3.7% in 2022 to about 6.7% in 2023. We've also seen an improvement with regards to education. That's 10.4% to about 18.9%, as well as health, which is 8% in the 2022 budget to about 10.4% in the 2023 budget. But one thing that we've noted as PMRC is, in as much as there's been an increase in budget allocation, we've also seen that we still fall short of these protocols, but we've actually seen the commitment from government as a way of improving sector spending. But when it comes to social protection, I think as Zambia, we're actually one of the best practices with regards to budget allocation for social protection, which has increased from 3.6% to 4.9%. And the international best practice is that of about 3.5% being allocated towards social protection. For water and sanitation, we're within the brackets of allocating at least 1 to 3%, but that also, we still need to improve with regards to budget financing, because the way we look at these international protocols is best practice, but as Zambia, we still note that our water and sanitation really needs more improvement. So going forward, we actually would like to urge government to increase, or maybe leaning towards a higher bound of this threshold. When we just look quickly into the key tax measures, government has proposed various tax measures in various sectors, and I think most the revenue gains that are going to be accrued through this the tax measures about 9.2 billion, of which the tax losses are amounting to about 4.3 billion, but nevertheless we actually see that there's a net revenue gain of about 4.9 billion. Now, just to touch on key tax measures that we've taken note of as PMRC, the first one is that on the tax credit. The tax credit is actually it's a discount that is accrued to certain individuals where they get a discount from taxes that they owe government, and we've actually seen that that has been increased with regards to tax credit for persons with disabilities. Initially they were getting about 500 kwacha discount, and it's been increased to about 600 kwacha discount. So this actually helps to curb the inequalities and also to maybe to safeguard their welfare. And also seen that government has introduced various VAT, that's value-added tax, and approximately the government wants to at least mobilize 6.8 billion of the total revenue gained through the various tax VAT measures that have been put in place, and we've also seen the introduction of VAT as well as excess duty to petrol and diesel, in as much as we know that this has got a negative impact with regards to social welfare, but I think it's something that's cardinal, also given the conditions that we had from IMF, where we had to increase our mobilization through PE, through VAT, as well as excess duty. The government has also proposed to increase the pay-as-you-earn exemption threshold to 4,800 and from 5,500. So this will actually ensure that about 21,000 workers will be put on pay exemption list. And also this has the potential of increasing disposable income for salaried households to 1 billion, which is an increase from the 600 million that was mentioned within the tax, the pay exemptions that were in the previous budget. Then lastly, I think I'm just going to touch on the excise duty that the government wants to put in place with regards to reduction in excise customs duty on electric vehicles, I think from 30% to 15%, which is as a way of enhancing our green economy. I think I'll just hand over to our Executive Director now to just go through the sector spending budget.
So we now look at the economic transformation and job creation measures in various sectors. So in the agricultural sector, we also see that there has also been an increase in the amount of allocation towards the support farmer support program, which ranges from 5.4 billion in 2022 to 9.1 billion in 2023. Mainly, this is basically due to the shift from FISIP to comprehensive agricultural support program. Prior budgets mainly focused on farmer input support program and FRA, so leaving out key priority areas such as extension and research and development. So PMRC looks at this as a good move for government, as it intends to spend at most 11.2 billion on various interventions in the agriculture, fisheries, livestock and subsectors in line with the comprehensive agriculture support program. We also see that the 9.1 billion that has been allocated towards farming inputs, whereas 789.5 million has been allocated towards extension services, which includes motorbikes, extension kits, rehabilitation of camp houses across the country, basically to sort of improve the service delivery in the agricultural sector, to improve productivity. We have also seen that government has proposed spending of 426 million on farm block development and irrigation support activities around the year. Further, we also see a 57.7 million allocated towards recruiting of 500 extension officers in the livestock, fisheries and agricultural subsectors. This is a good move because the ratio of these extension officers to the farmers has been quite low. Lastly, there is also a proposal by government to spend 274.4 million on animal disease control, which will facilitate procurement of animal vaccines and construction of animal vaccine plant at Balmoro in Changa. So this is a good move because it is important that some of the vaccines that we have been importing at an expensive price, we can actually be able to do them locally and, of course, reduce on such costs on the treasury. Government will also construct 40 dams across the country over the medium term, whereas 16 dams will be built in 2023. So I think what is critical here is to sort of see that these measures that have been put, they are good measures, but to ensure that they are actually actualized, especially beginning of 2023. Further, to to actualize the Chianti irrigation scheme in Kafue, government has secured $10 million from the African Development Bank to cover 600 hectares field irrigation by small order farmers. So this financing will also be used to establish storage facilities and the youth skills development center, which will benefit over 12,000 individuals. This is a good move because we can see that agriculture has to be supported at different value chains. So we also would like to commend government on this pronouncement, as it is one of the climate innovation and agricultural technology. And we have actually seen that in the past, weather variability has actually hit the country so hard. So it is important that to boost agriculture and even diversify it, we need irrigation support. Government has also committed to improving extension service, and the commencement of 256 extension workers will also be critical. Additional officers for recruitment have also been announced. Government has also shown commitment towards the livestock disease control, which has significantly increased to 96.4 million in 2022 budget, from which has basically increased from a year to 274.4 million in 2023 budget. So basically this increase is quite important, because currently as it is, one of the biggest issues as to why we cannot even export our livestock product is that disease control measures for the country have been quite a problem. Regarding the fisheries sector, government will continue to support aquaculture value chain players through the seed fund, as well as sustainable fishing practices in the capture fisheries. Government will also formulate the national health and national aquaculture and fisheries policies. So these anchoring policies will be critical to drive these subsectors, especially that we still have a deficit in terms of supplying our fish stock, both locally as well as to provide for exports. Further, we will also see that government to review and amend the Animal Health and Animal Identification Act. Actually, there's a lot of,
in progress.
There's actually a lot of to curb this animal theft. Animal theft, which has been basically a problem, can actually now be handled with mandatory identification for different livestock types. So the formulation of these two policies basically will ensure that government's effort towards improving productivity within the sector. Lastly, we also seek that to reduce business costs by authorizing applications and issuing licenses, permits, certificates, and other authorization through a single electronic window will be very critical. What are some of the recommendations we are providing with regards to the spending in the agricultural sector? So we see that smallholder farmers who have been actually facing challenges to market, PMRC recommends that extension services should not only be a product but be market oriented. So we think that for these interventions that have been done towards the extension service, it is important that one of the ingredients should be that to stimulate marketing efforts towards farmers. Government also needs to explore the public-private partnership to leverage on financing, share the risk fairly, develop innovations, and create access for more players within the sector. Because I think one of the key ingredients towards agriculture development is actually low access to financing. Government is also aided to timely provide disbursements of budgetary allocation towards the extension services to facilitate the enhancement of farmers' agricultural production. I think we can all note that in the previous past, likely in the last season, we could see that no one would actually say that 1.8 metric ton per hectare is sufficient enough to say that we are increasing our productivity. So Some of the measures like R&D and extension are quite very critical in terms of increasing our productivity to raise our yields from those low doldrums to an acceptable level. In the mining sector.
So before you go to the mining, just that maybe you can take us quickly. We will have about 6 minutes.
Okay. So in the mining sector, again, government wants to ramp up production to reach to 3 million metric tons in the next decade. So basically, what are some of the measures that government has basically provided in this budget? So one is the restructuring of the mineral royalty regime concerning copper, reduction in property transfer tax to 7.5% from 10%, then establishing a mining regulatory institution to regulate the oversight of the sector. Again, we can see that the 8th National Development Plan has also included some of the things that will be done in order to support the budget. So we see that formalization of key players in the sector to assist with the access to affordable financing and foreign investment will also be quite critical apart from joint ventures. Provision of support through the supply of necessary equipment and training will also be critical to increase that production. To achieve this, government has allocated 50 million towards the subsector to facilitate artisanal and small-scale miners to access equipment and training. What are some of the recommendations? We also see that we are urging government to timely and adequately provide funding towards the regulatory institution. We also urge that the Ministry of Finance or the Ministry of Mines and Mineral Development needs to formulate an exploration strategic plan to guide for the mineral exploration in the country, which can be used to attract funding towards exploration. To actualize the 2022 and 2022-2023 national budget, proposed tax changes, the Ministry of Mines and Minerals Development needs to expedite the review of policies such as the mines and minerals development, as this will actually be able to push, to attract or to provide a framework that will attract more investment in the sector. In the manufacturing sector, we also see that government has continued to promote the Mount Facility Economic Zones to broaden the country's industrial and manufacturing base. We can see that the M-Phase has been a success, attracting more than 30 companies with a total pledged investment of 230 million and 400 jobs in the last year. However, PMRC holds that $50,000 threshold required to operate in the M-Phase and industrial yards still remain a barrier to the local content. Further intervention in the M-Phase and industrial yards should form an infrastructure support and the minimum infrastructure required to ensure that issues such as energy, telecommunication, roads, water, and sewerage are taken into consideration. So some of the things also will be critical in terms of promoting value addition and manufacturing to sort of be able to raise revenue, and this is well supported in the 8th National Development Plan. The above listed measures are actually notable scores concerning this particular strategy. We also see that the Continental African Free Trade Area, AFTA, was a notable absence from the budget. It was not actually mentioned as how the country will basically play the role and how the country may benefit from this aspect. So the Africa Continental Free Trade Area also continues to hold much potential to aid growth for Zambia. Zambia's trade in the medium to long term, and will provide the kind of market linkages that the 8th National Development Plan basically envisions. In the tourism sector, some of the critical measures that government will undertake includes piloting the tourism single window in Livingstone, promoting tourism development by providing incentives to attract investment in the sector, then working towards increasing international flights And these measures are actually key to sort of attract more tourists, especially that we have faced low tourist inflows in the country in the previous past, especially when we had COVID-19. Some of the recommendations that we urge government would be to provide additional promotion packages to boost tourism traffic. PMRC also looks at government to expand the quality of tourism training. This will basically play a critical role in ensuring that the quality of services that we provide are at the highest standard. Government is further able to adopt new measures to incentivize and support investors in the existing and new facilities to stimulate investment.
Chair, thank you so much. The PMRC, thank you so much for your presentation. My question is on the table on the page, the third was announcing numbers where there is a resource envelope, and in particular it is on the domestic revenue, which in the budget we have seen a larger portion of the resources will come from the domestic area. Now my question is, don't you think this will have a negative impact on the citizens, knowing that this money will come from their pocket? Don't you think this might have a negative impact on it? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Piri, for that. When we're looking at the domestic envelope, I think it must mention that there are also issues to do with corporate income tax, there's pay, and when you look at statistics from ZRA, most of the taxes are actually from the corporate income tax, and especially on the mining sector. And so going forward, government is trying to expedite domestic resource mobilization, which we've also seen from the payee aspect, whereby the large bracket hasn't been reduced from 37.5%. But looking at the exemption threshold as well as the reduction in the second bracket, it will actually also improve with regards to domestic disposable income from about 600 in the 2022 budget to 1 billion in the 2023 budget. So for the measures that have been put in place, I think those actually are more on the citizens' perspective, and also looking at the theme of this budget, looking at stimulating economic growth through improving livelihoods. I think the government has really touched so much on creating tax reforms or tax measures that will not only benefit government itself, but also the general citizens. Like I had mentioned, when you're looking at the tax losses that government stands to gain, it's about 4.3 billion against the 9.2 billion that are going to actually accrue. So for those, most of the tax measures that have been put in place also work well towards the general public, as opposed to maybe the last year's budget where most of the tax measures were leaning mostly towards the mining sector. But for these ones, I think we also have seen that there will be an increase with regards to domestic disposable income. And also, maybe I would just encourage you, maybe when it comes to also doing the ZRA page, you can actually input your gross and just see how the proposed measure is also going to benefit us as general citizens. And I think there's a company, PMRC, they actually did that with regards to seeing how it will trickle down towards the general citizens. They had put an example of 10,000, the gross rate of 10,000 kwacha, where the person who would earn about 10,000 kwacha can actually earn 400 kwacha with regards to that move. So the move that have been put in place, I think they're also touching the welfare of general citizens, and we've also seen that the tax exemption threshold will also increase the number of people that will be exempted to about 21,000, so that also works well.
Where the government is proposing to spend about 444 million on recreation, culture and religion. I just want to know, to find out from you, because there's so much an increase from 156.4 million to about this 444. What would be the economic benefit if government spends this?
Okay,
Thank you, Chair. We just need some clarity and help. How would you put the people who are saying that, because from the question you have asked, it's like government is trying to get money from taxes in terms of payers, union and whatever, and then on the other hand, you hear government is saying, oh, these mines, they have given them waivers, like trying to incentivize it. And someone will say, no, it seems the government wants to punish its own people and let the foreigners get. Your organization, how would you caution us? How would you help us balance this equation?
PMRC is one of those 200 crores.
Maybe just to begin with the recreation, culture, and leisure, the amount that has been increased, basically looking at our tourism sector, we actually want to improve on our tourism products as a country. So one of the things that actually attracts tourists is also issues to do with our culture as well as recreation. That's why we've seen this increase. So this is also one of the measures that government is trying to look at as a way of improving our tourism products, which will also attract more tourists, which will benefit the tourism industry. Then when it comes to the second question, looking at waivers, I think some of in the 2022 budget, the proposal that was given by government of making mineral royalty deductible from corporate income tax was as a way of installing international best practice. And also we had actually made an ambitious move to increase our copper production from 800,000 metric tons to 300 million metric tons. And going forward as well, we've also seen other tax measures that have been put towards the mining sector, which is going to make government lose approximately 2.8 billion with regards to those waivers. But one thing that we must note is that at the beginning I mentioned that most of our income, corporate income, comes from the mining sector, and they are the major contributors towards this. So government is actually trying to put in place measures as to improve the mining sector, creating our mining tax regime more competitive, bringing in more players, which also, once that is done, it will trickle down to the general citizens. So it's something that is going to be done in the long run. We might not benefit from the short run effects of those moves, but it's also just going to be in terms of the long run. But this year, I think government has also tried to put in place those concerns. You can even look at the artisanal, small scale and artisanal mining sector, where government has also incentivized those areas. And also for the payee, from the way it's just been calculated, we've also seen an increase. So it's for the payee, it's actually, previously I thought as though it's just from the gross pay, that way you just do 37% of that, but that's not the way it is. So for each tax brand, you have to, exempted for each 4,800 that a person makes, that person does not accrue any taxes. In the second tax brand, it's been banned, it's been reduced from 25% to 20%. So within that threshold, the person is only going to contribute 20%. So we can actually also see that there's been a reduction and an incentive that has been given towards the domestic or maybe salaried workers. So the tax measures, I must say that they are a bit, they've cut at all sectors and will have a trickle-down effect whilst effectively implemented.
Maybe just to add on the aspect of mining, I think so the incentives that have been given are basically, these are some of the things that the mining houses have been crying out. They've been saying that it has been quite expensive to invest in this country, and now government has given. So it's now time for the government also to see that, they reciprocate by, one, compliance in terms of paying the right taxes, because I think we could even see the recent presentation that ZRI made showed that compliance by a number of mining houses has been quite poor in the past, but including not just the mining houses, but even other business firms. We are actually below 50% in terms of compliance. So what is critical is that you will be able to provide oversight to see to it that do these measures basically create the sort of impact that we deserve as a country?